If you enjoy stories of defiance against impossible odds, of hidden strength and the tremor before the storm, like, subscribe and share this video. Your support helps us tell more tales of humanity's quiet roar. Now, let's begin against the endless, swallowing velvet of the cosmos. Stars did not merely shine. They burned with a cold, ancient fury, like scattered diamond shards upon an abyssal canvas. It was into this silent, magnificent desolation that the imperial flagship Dominator glided, a leviathan of polished argent steel. Its form was a blade of shadow and reflected starlight, a symbol of dominion that moved with a predatory grace that mocked the void's emptiness. Within its armored heart, on the command bridge bathed in the sterile blue glow of 100 control panels, Admiral Toole stood as a statue of scaled arrogance. His forearms were clasped tightly behind the ceremonial plating on his back, the bioluminescent patterns beneath his skin pulsing a slow, confident rhythm of absolute control. "Report," he hissed, the sibilant words slithering from a forked tongue accustomed to command. "How long until we breach the orbit of this Earth?" To his side, Commander Mox, a being whose face was a map of strategic cruelty, tapped a sequence on a translucent pane of light. 3 hours, Admiral. Our forward scouts have pierced their heliosphere. Initial assessments confirm primitive signatures. Chemical propulsion, fragmented planetary communications, energy outputs consistent with pre-fusion infancy. A smirk played on his lips. They are children playing with fire in a universe of infernos. Admiral Toole allowed a slow nod, his vertical pupilled eyes narrowing to citron slits. The Emperor had dispatched him on dozens of first-contact missions: the subjugation of the crystalline Kvath, the pacification of the gas giant dwellers of Yarsol. Each had been a triumphant procession of imperial might. This was an afterthought, a tidying up, humanity's greatest achievement, a fragile footprint on their own desolate moon, was a millennia-old memory in the Empire's archives. Their world, a gaudy blue marble on the screens, was fractured into a cacophony of warring tribes. They were not a civilization, they were a prelude to one. "Arrange the standard demonstration," Toole ordered, his voice a low rasp that carried to every corner of the bridge. "The formation of awe. Let these primitives comprehend the scale of their irrelevance before a single word is spoken. Let the shadow of our wings teach them the meaning of power." Behind the Dominator, the void birthed nightmares of elegant destruction. 20 warships slid into flawless geometric alignment, each a masterpiece of lethal engineering. Their hulls shimmered with contained energy, weapons capable of scouring continents from orbit humming with ready power. This ballet of intimidation had shattered the will of hundreds of species before. It was a universal language. The strong command, the weak submit. Admiral Toole watched the formation lock into place, a sculptor admiring his final, devastating arrangement. Yet, as the Imperial Armada crossed the orbital boundary of the pale blue, their sensors prickled with anomalies. The humans had detected them, not with the panicked shrieks of a surprised prey, but with a sudden, coordinated silence, followed by a flurry of activity. Pinpricks of heat and light ignited from the planet's surface, clumsy, explosive blossoms pushing pathetic metal canisters into the great dark. On the Dominator's main viewer, the images were almost comical. Vessels that seemed welded together from spare parts, trailing plumes of primitive combustion. By the Emperor's light, Commander Mox snorted, derision dripping from every syllable. "Look at them. They still burn things to reach the stars. It's a miracle their planet isn't a smoldering crater." "We all begin in the dark, Commander," Admiral Toole murmured, though the condescension in his tone betrayed his own agreement. "Even the longest journey starts with a single stumbling step. There's ends here. Open a channel. Let us see if their capacity for speech outmatches their engineering." The screen flickered, static coalescing into the face of a human male. His hair was cropped short, gray at the temples, and his eyes held a disconcerting, weathered calm. He wore a simple uniform, devoid of the gaudy medals or bioluminescent displays of imperial rank. This was General Tom of Earth's Unified Defense Command. His lack of visible fear was the first true surprise of the day. Unidentified fleet, you have entered sovereign space under the protection of Earth Defense Command. The human's voice was clear, firm, devoid of the tremor Tool had come to expect. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. Admiral Tool drew himself to his full, imposing height, nearly 8 feet of scaled, majestic threat. I am Admiral Tool of the Galactic Empire, Herald of Emperor Drax, Sovereign of 1,000 worlds. Your planet has been observed. Its potential, however limited, has been noted. We extend to you the honor of integration into our glorious empire as a protected territory. Your species will be sheltered, guided, and brought into the light of true civilization. He paused, waiting for the grateful tears, the desperate pleas for mercy, the prostrations. General Tom's expression did not change. The calm remained, solid as granite. And if our people, he asked, each word measured, are not interested in this honor? The question hung in the air, so alien, so utterly unexpected, that for a heartbeat, the bridge was silent. Commander Mox broke it with a bark of incredulous laughter. The sound seemed to snap something in the human's composure. Not fear, but a final, decisive shift. Then, Tool replied, his voice dropping into a glacial register. We would be compelled to demonstrate the tangible benefits of our protection. The galaxy is a cemetery of lonely worlds that refused our embrace. General, it would be a profound tragedy to add your vibrant planet to that silent collection. General Tom absorbed the not-so-veiled threat. He nodded once, slowly. I understand. Then let me be unequivocal, Admiral Tool. Earth is not now, nor will it ever be, a territory, a protectorate, or a subject of any external power. We welcome dialogue. We seek peaceful coexistence. But we will defend our independence. Without exception. Mox could no longer contain himself. Defend? He jeered, leaning toward the screen. With what? Those atmospheric firecrackers? Those tin cans you hurled into the void as a greeting? You would challenge the Imperial fleet with combustion. Admiral Tool raised a restraining hand, but the poison was already in the air. He saw it in the way General Tom's eyes hardened, the calm transforming into something flinty and resolute. You measure strength only in the weight of your hulls and the yield of your energy cores, Admiral, General Tom said, his voice now a low, dangerous vibration. We possess something your vast empire, for all its glory, seems to have forgotten. Respect for the sovereignty of others. I strongly suggest you recalibrate your approach. The screen went dark, not with a fizzle of static, but with a sharp, definitive cut. Silence, thick and bewildered, settled on the bridge. Admiral Tool stared at the empty space where the human's face had been. A strange, cold flicker. Not yet fear, but the precursor to it. The unease of a predator who has heard a growl from a creature he believed was a herbivore. Touched his spine. They severed the transmission. Mox sputtered, outrage coloring his scales a mottled purple. The insolence, the sheer, suicidal pride. The flicker within Tool grew. Submission was a language he spoke fluently. This blunt defiance was a dialect unknown. Brave or foolish? The question echoed. Perhaps both. Perhaps something else entirely. Send the Vigil, he ordered, his decision sharp. The lead scout ship. Have it approach their primary orbital cluster. Let us test the metal behind their words. Let them gaze upon the beauty of our technology at point-blank range and see if their courage melts. The Vigil, a dart-shaped vessel of sleek imperial design, detached from the formation and sped toward the cluster of human satellites and rudimentary stations that dotted their orbit. On the Dominator's bridge, sensors tracked its progress. Admiral, the sensor officer called out, confusion in his voice. The human orbital assets are powering down. But we have a new launch from their southern hemisphere. A single vessel. Small. Primitive design signature. But its acceleration curve is anomalous. On the viewer, a new blip appeared. The human craft was a jagged, asymmetrical thing, a collection of angular modules and exposed conduits that looked less built and more assembled in haste. It was a tenth the size of the Vigil, a gnat facing a hawk. Yet, it moved with a jerky, purposeful aggression, closing the distance with alarming speed. Are they attempting a ramming maneuver? Mock scoffed, though his derision now held a note of uncertainty. Admiral Toole said nothing. The cold feeling in his stomach had solidified into a hard, icy weight. Order the Vigil to increase distance. Now. It was too late. The human craft performed a maneuver that defied its crude appearance, a sudden lateral burst that brought it alongside the Vigil. For a moment, it seemed to cling to the Imperial ship's shimmering hull like a metallic parasite. "What is it doing?" Toole demanded, stepping forward. "Target that thing. Blast it off." Before the weapons officer could comply, the main viewer flared with a silent, blinding whiteness, a flash that left temporary ghosts on their retinas. When vision cleared, the Vigil was adrift, a dark, inert shape against the stars. Its running lights were dead, the systems offline. The human craft detached and sped away, retreating toward Earth with the same unnerving agility. "Impossible!" The word was a roar from Commander Mox, his face a mask of shattered dogma. A Class 2 scout, disabled. How? Analysis. Toole's command was a whipcrack. The science officer worked frantically, his voice trembling as he delivered the verdict. An electromagnetic pulse weapon, Admiral. Crude by our standards. A simple, focused burst of disruptive energy. But the delivery, the precision of the attachment and detonation, it was perfectly executed. The Vigil systems are rebooting, but the ship is combat ineffective. Primitive weapon, a sophisticated tactic. The contradiction screamed in Toole's mind. No species in first contact had ever struck back, let alone landed a telling blow. It was an unthinkable breach of cosmic protocol. "Admiral," the communications officer called. "Incoming transmission from Earth. Priority channel." General Tom's face reappeared. There was no gloating, no triumph. Only that same implacable calm, now edged with an unmistakable finality. That was a targeted disablement, Admiral Toole. A warning shot, calibrated to minimize harm while maximizing message. "We prefer peace, but we have prepared extensively for war. You have 24 hours to withdraw your fleet from our solar system. This is not a negotiation." The screen went black again. This time, the silence on the bridge of the Dominator was absolute, a physical weight pressing down on the assembled crew. Admiral Toole stood motionless, the bioluminescent patterns beneath his scales flickering erratically with the storm of his thoughts. These humans did not cower. They calculated. They did not beg. They issued ultimatums. They had looked upon the majesty of the galactic empire and had not seen masters. They had seen a problem to be solved, a threat to be neutralized. "Recall all vessels to the fleet standard position," he said, the words tasting of ash and unprecedented retreat. "Plot a course for the nearest stable jump point. We must report this anomaly directly to the Emperor." He turned finally to gaze once more at the blue planet on the viewer. No longer just a primitive prize, but an enigma wrapped in steel and defiance. This species is not what we believed. They are something other. As the great Imperial fleet turned its elegant prows away from the sun of humanity, a retreat that felt like a seismic shift in the universe's order, Admiral Toole made a quiet vow to the stars. "This is not over. The Empire does not tolerate resistance. We will return." He could not know, as the Dominator leapt into the faster-than-light stream, that he was not fleeing from weakness, but from the first faint tremor of an avalanche. The Empire's golden age had just met its first, unyielding crack. And on the blue world below, in buried command centers and humming laboratories, humanity was already moving to the next phase of their plan. The warning shot had been fired. The next one would be a declaration. End of Section 1. The stage is set. The Empire has been challenged. But what humanity has hidden is far more terrifying than a single clever weapon. Their true strength is not in a ship, but in a mindset, a philosophy of survival forged in the crucible of their own violent history. When I say next, we will delve into the heart of that revelation. The arrival of the defiance and the shocking truth of human engineering. The core of the galactic empire did not thrum with energy. It pulsed with the deep, resonant heartbeat of absolute certainty. For 10,000 years, this certainty had been the bedrock of reality across 1,000 star systems. Imperial technology was the apex of evolution, its elegant solutions the final, beautiful word in physics and power. This certainty now lay shattered in the Grand Council chamber of Emperor Drax. Poisoned by the report of a single, inexplicable retreat, Admiral Toole stood before the towering, bioluminescent form of the Emperor, feeling the weight of 1,000 skeptical stares from the assembled High Council. The air itself seemed thick with disbelief and the sour scent of scandal. Let me comprehend this slowly. Emperor Drax's voice was a tectonic rumble, the patterns on his massive form shifting through agitated hues of vermilion and bruised purple. A species that, by your own initial assessment, was pre-fusion, pre-unification, and technologically adolescent, not only refused the Imperial offer but actively disabled a scout vessel and compelled a full fleet withdrawal. You, Admiral of the Silver Armada, heeded a 24-hour ultimatum from primates. Toole's scales, once a confident cobalt, were pallid, bleached by stress. The tactical scenario was unprecedented majesty. They employed an EMP device with pinpoint precision. The implication was not the weapon itself, but the delivery system, the agility, the timing. It suggested a tactical sophistication that contradicted their technological profile. A retreat was prudent to gather. Prudent! The word was hissed from the shadows. Captain Venn emerged, his form slender and severe, the left half of his face a masterpiece of polished cybernetics, his organic eye sharp as a dagger. Or perilous. You have not introduced a new species to the Empire, Admiral. You have introduced doubt. Doubt is a virus for which we have no immune system. Before Toole could form a retort, the chamber's immense doors hissed open, violating all protocol. A junior officer, his carapace slick with stress fluid, stumbled in and fell to his knees. Forgive the intrusion, Celestial Emperor. Priority alert from the Rimward Sentinel Array in Sector 7. Emperor Drax's massive head inclined. Speak. A vessel, Majesty. It has dropped from superluminal travel at the edge of the Hezarian Gulf. Its energy signature is anomalous, massive. It matches no known configuration in the Imperial Registry. The officer trembled. And its point of origin, extrapolated from its vector, is the Sol system. A ripple of cold laughter, brittle and nervous, traveled through the council. One ship? Scoffed Councillor Vex, his antennae twitching with derision. After their grand defiance, they send one ship? Is this an embassy or a suicide? Its size, honored Councillor, the officer whispered, his voice breaking. Initial scans indicate a mass comparable to our Invincible-class battlecruiser. And the energy readings from its power core, our sensors cannot fully resolve them. The output is theoretically impossible with known containment models. The laughter died, strangled in the sudden, frigid silence. The Invincible class was the pride of the fleet, a 3-kilometer-long testament to Imperial engineering. That a human vessel could rival it was not just impossible. It was a heresy against reality. On the throne, Emperor Drax's bioluminescence stabilized into a cold, steady white, the color of absolute focus. Captain Venn, your analytical prowess is unmatched. Take the Invincible and its attendant battle group to the Hezarian Gulf. Intercept this phantom. Dissect its secrets. Determine if this is a bluff or a revolution. Captain Ven bowed, his cybernetic eye whirring softly, already processing probabilities. By your command, Emperor. The void of the Hezarian Gulf was not empty. It was a tableau of silent, deadly ballet. 5 Imperial warships, sleek as razors and humming with weaponized grace, formed a crescent around their flagship. The Invincible was a poem in durasteel, every curve serving a function, every line flowing into the next with minimalist perfection. On its bridge, Captain Ven stood perfectly still, his dual perceptions, the organic and the synthetic, drinking in the data. There, his first officer murmured, pointing to the tactical hologram. A single, blocky icon pulsed with a steady, ominous rhythm. Magnify, full spectrum. Ven ordered. The main viewer resolved the image, and for the first time in his long, logical life, Captain Ven experienced a sensation so alien he barely recognized it. Awe, tinged with profound dread. The human ship hung in the darkness like a brutalist fortress carved from asteroid ore. Where Imperial ships were flowing and predatory, this vessel was angular, all hard edges and reinforced junctions. Thick, slab-like armor plating covered its hull, devoid of aesthetic grace, speaking only of pure, uncompromising durability. Panels were riveted, not fused. Conduits, clearly redundant, ran in parallel along its spine. It was not built. It was forged. It was the antithesis of everything the Empire believed about advancement. That cannot be of human origin, Ven finally said, his voice barely disturbing the stunned quiet of the bridge. It contradicts every developmental law. It is technological regression made manifest. Sir, they are hailing us. Broad-spectrum peace protocol. Ven straightened his uniform, a tiny, subconscious gesture of asserting order in the face of the utterly disordered. On screen, the face that appeared was that of a man in his middle years, his features etched with the calm of deep space but lacking the aristocratic pallor of Imperial command. His uniform was a simple, dark jumpsuit. Imperial vessel, this is Captain Jack Riker of the Earth Strategic Defense Vessel Defiance. We come under a flag of parley and request diplomatic dialogue with the governing body of the Galactic Empire. Ven's mind, enhanced 1,000-fold by his implants, raced through scenarios. The human's demeanor was open, yet his eyes held a reserve, a depth of calculation. This is Captain Ven of the Imperial flagship Invincible. Your vessel's capabilities present a significant contradiction to our intelligence profiles. A drastic, inexplicable contradiction. Explain. A ghost of a smile touched Captain Riker's lips. A contradiction only if your intelligence was complete, Captain. Did your empire truly believe we would display our full capabilities to an uninvited, threatening fleet? We've watched the stars for centuries, listening to the silent symphony of the cosmos. Did you think we were merely painting pictures on cave walls while your scouts approached? You are asserting this level of technological sophistication was concealed during first contact? Ven's tone was flat, disbelieving. Not concealed. Unnecessary to reveal, Riker corrected gently. Your Admiral tool arrived with the subtlety of a meteor strike, demanding submission. We responded with a measured, proportional deterrent. Now we speak. The choice of dialogue, however, remains yours, sir. The science officer's synaptic link whispered directly into Ven's consciousness, a stream of panic data. Preliminary scans of their power core are defying causality. It is a fusion reactor, yes, but the containment principles. Our models indicate catastrophic instability at these energy densities. Yet their readings are rock steady. It is as if they are breaking laws we consider fundamental. Ven kept his organic eye locked on Riker. The Emperor has authorized preliminary negotiation. Would you consent to board the Invincible for talks? I would be honored, Riker nodded. I must, for protocol, be accompanied by a small diplomatic security detail. Of course, we will prepare a shuttle bay. The channel closed. The bridge remained silent, the looming image of the Defiance now feeling less like a ship and more like a physical question mark hanging in space. Full tactical and technological analysis. Ven ordered, his voice low. I want to know the composition of every plate on its hull, the emission spectrum of every port, and open a secure channel to the Emperor. The situation is fluid. An hour later, Captain Jack Riker stood in the strategic briefing room of the Invincible, flanked by 3 human officers. They observed their opulent, flowing surroundings, the shimmering energy conduits, the holographic displays that bloomed like light flowers, with polite interest, but no awe. One of them, a woman with a keen gaze and short-cropped gray hair, subtly scanned the room's architecture, her eyes lingering on structural joints. Your vessel is a testament to elegance, Captain Ven. Riker began, taking a seat without waiting for an invitation. A single, perfect system achieving maximal output. We admire its purity. And yours is a testament to mass, Ven replied, gesturing for his officers to sit. My scientists are particularly intrigued by your power core. The energy signatures suggest fusion, but the stability metrics are implausible. How do you contain the plasma without multidimensional energy fields? Riker glanced at the gray-haired woman. Dr. Eris? You have the floor. Dr. Lena Eris leaned forward, her movements economical. You approach the problem from the perspective of energy manipulation, Captain. A beautiful, high-concept solution. Bend space, create a perfect, immaterial bottle. We approached it from the other end. We asked, what material could physically withstand the heart of a star? Ven's cybernetic eye flickered, cross-referencing databases. No known alloy or composite can withstand sustained fusion-level temperatures and pressures. It is a material science dead end we abandoned a millennium ago. A dead end for you? Dr. Eris said, not unkindly. She tapped a device on her wrist. A hologram, crisp and functional, appeared above the table, showing a cross-section of the Defiance's core. It was a nested series of concentric shells. We didn't find one material. We engineered 7, each with a different crystalline structure and thermal dispersion property. Layer 1 fails, Layer 2 compensates. Layers 3 through 7 are redundant. It's inefficient by your metrics. It requires more mass, more complexity. But it is absolutely reliable. Your elegant field fails if power fluctuates by 0.3%. Our clumsy shells can take a direct kinetic impact and maintain containment. The revelation hit Ven not as data, but as a philosophical shock. The Empire's entire technological paradigm was based on the supremacy of energy over matter. To master the universe was to bend its forces. The human approach to outstubborn physics with layered, brute-force material science was not just different. It was a profound rejection of imperial dogma. And your weapon systems? Ven asked carefully. Do they follow this same philosophy of redundancy? We prefer to discuss weapons only if the discussion of peace fails, Riker said, his tone pleasant but final. Before Ven could probe further, a priority alert vibrated against his temple. He excused himself, stepping to the room's periphery. Captain, his sensor officer's voice was tense in his neural link. The Defiance has activated multiple weapon ports. Energy signatures are catastrophic. Theoretical yield calculations suggest a single discharge could cripple the Invincible. Ven's blood ran cold. He looked back at the humans, who were conversing quietly amongst themselves, utterly at ease. Are we targeted? Negative. The targeting scanners are active, but they are not locked on us. The power buildup is continuing. Sir, there's more. Long-range sensors have just detected an Imperial battle group, the Talons of Drax, exiting superluminal travel 2 light minutes away. They were not on our schedule. The Emperor had sent a hidden hammer, failsafe, and the humans had detected it before his own, supposedly superior sensors had. Ven returned to the table, his face a placid mask over a churning mind. Captain Riker, our sensors indicate your ship has activated its primary armaments. During a diplomatic parley, this is an act of profound aggression. Riker's calm never wavered. A precaution, Captain Ven. Your Emperor has dispatched a second fleet, the Talons of Drax, I believe, to this location. They will arrive in approximately 53 minutes. We deemed it prudent to be prepared, in the unfortunate event that your diplomacy is merely a prelude to a pincer maneuver. The cold in Ven's veins turned to ice. They knew the fleet's name. They knew its arrival time to the minute. Their sensor technology was not just different. It was superior in this arena. I assure you, Ven said, forcing his pulse to slow through biofeedback, the Emperor wishes only for productive talks. The additional fleet is a standard security protocol. Of course, Riker smiled, a gesture that did not touch the cool assessment in his eyes. Then let us continue our productive talk. Item 1. The formal recognition of the Terran Confederation as a sovereign interstellar power. As the discussion moved into the granular details of borders, communications protocols, and non-interference treaties, Captain Ven participated, but his consciousness was split. Part of him navigated the negotiation. The larger part was reevaluating the universe. The humans had not just built a powerful ship. They had built it wrong according to Imperial doctrine, and yet it worked spectacularly. They valued redundancy over elegance, robustness over efficiency, dispersion over centralization. What if their entire history, a chronicle of fractious nations and near self-annihilation, had not been a weakness, but a brutal training ground? A species that had lived with the constant threat of its own extinction would naturally build systems that could survive anything, even the elegant might of the Empire. The talks concluded with a fragile agreement to continue at the Imperial capital. As the human shuttle departed, Ven stared at the Defiance, now more menacing in its silent, blocky resilience. Analysis? He asked his science officer. It's not just the reactor, sir, the officer said, voice hushed. Their entire network architecture is distributed. No central computer core. Dozens of parallel processing nodes. Their power grid has 6 independent trunks. To disable that ship, you wouldn't need to find a weak point. You'd have to utterly obliterate it. It's a paradox. It's primitive in concept, but executed with an advancement that makes it terrifyingly resilient. Captain Ven prepared his report for the Emperor, knowing the words he would write would not merely describe a new ship, but herald the arrival of a new galactic philosophy. The Empire had met a species that did not seek to join their perfect, shining order. They had brought their own order, forged in a different, darker fire. And for the first time, the flawless crystal of Imperial certainty had a crack. End of Section 2. The Defiance has revealed humanity's terrifying truth. Their strength lies not in matching Imperial technology, but in rejecting its very principles. They have built a fortress in the void, and they have done it by walking a path the Empire abandoned as obsolete. But one ship, no matter how resilient, is still just one ship. The Empire's pride is wounded, its curiosity piqued, but its might is still vast. The stage is set for the grandest, most devastating demonstration of all. When I say next, we will witness the Imperial response, the Battle of the Hezarian Gulf, and the moment the galaxy's old order breathes its last. The heart of the Empire, the capital world of Zarvis Prime, did not spin, it thrummed with the orchestrated energy of 10 millennia of unchallenged dominion. Its cities were symphonies in crystalline spires and flowing energy ways, a testament to the beautiful, unwavering logic of imperial rule. But in the Grand Council chamber, that logic was dissolving into the acid of panic. The air, usually scented with ozonic calm, was thick with the phenomenal tang of confusion and fear. Admiral Toole stood before the shimmering, agitated form of Emperor Drax, his report on the Defiance hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. the holographic schematics of the human vessel, its nested armor, its distributed networks, its brutally simple kinetic accelerators, rotated slowly, an ugly scar on the chamber's pristine displays. You are telling me, Emperor Drax's voice was a low, dangerous vibration that made the very floor plates tremble, that these humans achieve stability not through the refined mastery of forces, but through layered rock? That they prefer a cacophony of simple minds to a single, sublime intelligence? That they would rather throw a pebble at near-light speed than wield a coherent beam of annihilating beauty? Captain Ven, standing at rigid attention beside Tool, answered, his cybernetic eye projecting streams of corroborating data. Not preference, Celestial Emperor. Philosophy. Where we seek the singular, perfect solution, the elegant equation, they seek the survivable one. Their history is a chronicle of catastrophic failure and recovery. Their technology reflects this. It is not designed to be perfect. It is designed to endure. A wave of disgusted murmurs washed through the assembled high counselors. The Talari ambassador clicked his mandibles. It is barbarism, glorified stubbornness. To overbuild is to admit intellectual poverty. Yet, Ven continued, his voice cutting through the disdain, it was this poverty that created a gravitational lens shield our energy weapons could not penetrate. It was this stubbornness that birthed a fusion reactor whose failure mode is 5 more backups. They do not fight the laws of physics with finesse. They negotiate with them, using bulk and redundancy as bargaining chips. Emperor Drax's bioluminescence pulsed a slow, deep crimson, the color of a dying star. The defiance was an insult, but the idea behind it, the validation of a path the Empire had scorned, was an existential threat. It challenged the foundational myth of imperial supremacy, that their way was not just best, but only. Diplomacy has failed, the Emperor announced, the finality in his tone silencing the chamber. They speak of sovereignty while their monstrous vessel lurks in our territory. They offer peace from a position of perceived strength. The Empire does not negotiate with equals it has not designated. We remind them of the natural order. He turned his colossal head, light glinting off his cranial ridges. Admiral Tool, you retreated once. You will not retreat again. The entire 4th Imperial Armada, 20 Invincible-class battlecruisers, is placed under your command. You will proceed to the Hizarian Gulf. You will surround the Defiance. You will demand its unconditional surrender. And if the humans refuse, you will reduce their testament to brute force into atomic dust. Tool felt a surge of grim vindication. Yet beneath it, Captain Ven's analytical warnings echoed. The Armada will be victorious, Emperor. Tool intoned, his scales darkening with resolve. Emperor, Ven interjected, stepping forward. A gasp rippled through the council. Dissent at this moment was unprecedented. A recommendation: do not engage their ship directly. Lure it, contain it, study it. Their one advantage is the novelty of their design. In a protracted campaign, our industrial and strategic depth. Enough, Captain. Emperor Drax's voice was icy. Your caution is recorded, but the time for analysis is past. The Empire's response must be immediate, overwhelming, and final. We will not be lectured on philosophy by upstart children. Go, Admiral. Restore the galaxy's equilibrium. As Tool strode from the chamber to assume command of the most powerful fleet ever assembled for a single engagement, Ven felt a profound chill. The Empire was not just going to war with a ship. It was going to war with an idea. And ideas, once unleashed, were harder to kill than any fortress. The Hizarian Gulf became a cathedral of war. 20 Imperial battlecruisers slid into formation with a silent, breathtaking majesty. The Conqueror, Admiral Tool's new flagship, led the awe-inspiring array. They were sculptures of light and shadow, their hulls gleaming like black pearls, their weapon arrays, elegant spirals and clean emplacements, glowing with pent-up stellar fury. Against this ballet of refined destruction, the Defiance hung alone, a squat, angular affront. It looked like a forgotten, armored bunker adrift in a gallery of priceless vases. On the bridge of the Conqueror, Toole felt the old certainty return, magnified by the immense power at his fingertips. Open a channel to the human vessel. On the main viewer, Captain Jack Riker's face appeared. He showed no surprise at the armada arrayed against him. His expression was one of profound disappointment. Admiral Toole, I see the Emperor has chosen the path of tragedy. The only tragedy here, Captain Riker, is the waste of a novel design. Toole replied, his voice echoing with amplified authority. You have one final opportunity. Surrender the Defiance, submit its crew and design schematics to Imperial authority, and Earth will be granted protectorate status with minimal punitive measures. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why the Empire's elegance has endured for 100 centuries. You stand against the culmination of galactic evolution. Riker sighed, a small, weary sound. Admiral, you still speak of evolution as a linear path. A single, shining highway. Humanity stumbled onto a different road. A harder, messier one full of switchbacks and dead ends. But it got us here, and we will not abandon it because you find it ugly. He leaned slightly forward. Your weapons are beautiful. Ours are effective. Let us not confuse the two. You dare, Toole began, but Riker cut him off. What happens next is not on us, Admiral. The responsibility for the lives about to be lost rests solely on your conscience. We are prepared to defend ourselves. The screen went black. Toole's jaw tightened. So be it. All vessels attack pattern Sigma. Primary target, their propulsion and power core. Disable, do not destroy. I want their secrets intact. The 20 battlecruisers moved as one. A fluid, terrifying dance of positioning. Then space itself tore. Lances of pure, coherent energy. Beams of annihilating light that could boil oceans and vaporize mountains, erupted from the Imperial formation. The very fabric of the void seemed to scream as they converged on the lone, blocky human ship in a spectacular, intersecting web of destruction. On the Conqueror's bridge, officers watched, anticipating the flash of breached armor. The flare of a dying reactor. It did not come. The energy beams, mere kilometers from the Defiance's hull, bent. Like light passing through a twisted lens, they warped away in impossible directions, scattering harmlessly into the void. The human ship sat untouched at the center of a terrifyingly beautiful light show, a stone unmoved by a hurricane. Report! Toole barked, the first thread of dread weaving into his voice. Gravitational distortion of incredible precision. Admiral, the science officer cried, his voice cracking. They're not generating a shield barrier. They're creating localized gravity wells around their hull, invisible lenses that bend spacetime itself. Our energy weapons are being refracted around them. All ships, switch to kinetic battery fire. Target the same areas. Toole ordered, his mind racing. Gravity manipulation at this scale was a theoretical Imperial toy, impractical for combat. The humans had made it a plowshare. A storm of magnetically accelerated tungsten slugs, each the size of a ground vehicle, hurtled toward the Defiance. These would not be bent by gravity wells. They had mass. Just before impact, small, rapid-fire points on the human hull glowed and spat. Dozens of smaller projectiles, no larger than a human finger, intercepted the incoming storm with impossible accuracy. They struck the Imperial slugs not to destroy them, but to nudge them. Microscopic course corrections at the last nanosecond, sending the massive projectiles veering off into the void. Point defense kinetics, the tactical officer whispered, horrified. But the tracking speed, the computational precision, it's like swatting individual bullets with other bullets. Before the Empire could process the second failure, the Defiance struck back. Along its flanks, armored panels slid open with a silent, mechanical finality. What emerged were not the gleaming emitter arrays of energy weapons, but the blunt, unadorned barrels of massive coil guns. They looked archaic, primitive. They're preparing projectile weapons. Commander Mox, now on the Conqueror's bridge, sneered, but the sneer lacked conviction. The Defiance fired. There was no brilliant beam, no roar of displaced energy, just a subtle vibration through the sensors. A dozen invisible specks of tungsten-depleted uranium composite, each massing less than a gram, were accelerated to 0.99 C. They crossed the distance between the fleets in an eye blink. The Imperial ship Glory of Yarsol, a pristine vessel of flowing lines, simply came apart. It didn't explode in a fireball. Its elegant energy shields, designed to diffuse and dissipate intense heat and radiation, flashed once and vanished, utterly irrelevant. The microscopic projectiles, carrying kinetic energy equivalent to a fusion warhead, punched through its armor like paper, through decks, through reactors, transferring their apocalyptic momentum in a straight line. The ship's spine snapped. It broke in two with a silent, gut-wrenching violence, its internal atmosphere freezing into a glittering, expanding cloud of ice crystals and debris. The bridge of the Conqueror was dead silent. "Sir, the Glory, it's gone," the communications officer said, his voice hollow. Another Imperial ship, the Swift Judgment, shuddered. A projectile had clipped its primary power conduit. Elegant, centralized, and unforgiving, the system failed catastrophically. The ship went dark, a lifeless husk. The Defiance fired again, and again, a methodical, relentless thump-thump-thump of invisible death. Each shot was a surgical strike. A reactor, a propulsion manifold, the central computer core. The Empire's perfect ships, with their beautiful single point of failure designs, died beautifully and efficiently. Evasive maneuvers. Tool finally roared, his composure shattering. Scatter the formation. Target those weapon ports with concentrated fire. But the human ship was already tracking, its distributed brain calculating firing solutions for 20 targets simultaneously. It was like being stalked by a glacier with the reflexes of a viper. Another cruiser, attempting a desperate roll, took a round through its engineering section. Its elegant warp core, lacking the crude but effective ejection systems of human design, ruptured. The vessel vanished in a brief, miniature star .9 ships, 10, 12. The pride of the Fourth Armada was being dismantled with calm, brutal precision by a foe whose technology they had dismissed as a crude historical footnote. That on the main viewer, Captain Riker's face reappeared unsmiling. "Admiral Toole, you have lost 12 capital ships. Your weapons cannot touch us. Your formation is broken. Cease fire and order your remaining vessels to withdraw. Please, end this before more of your crew pay for the Emperor's pride." Toole stared at the screen, then at the tactical display bleeding icons of dead and dying ships. He saw the Defiance utterly unmarked, a monolithic symbol of a different truth. The elegant equation had failed. The beautiful solution had shattered. The fear he had felt at first contact was now a yawning chasm in his soul. He was not just losing a battle. He was witnessing the collapse of a 10,000-year-old truth. His voice, when it came, was the ghost of a sound. "All Imperial vessels. This is the Admiral. Stand down. Power down all weapons. Disengage." The shock on the bridge was palpable. "Sir?" the weapons officer breathed. "You heard the order." Toole screamed, the raw sound tearing from his throat. "Cease fire. All ships. Initiate withdrawal protocols." He turned back to Riker, his scales a sickly gray. "We will withdraw. But know this, human. The Empire does not forget." "We never expected you to," Riker replied solemnly. "But remember this too, we offered peace. You chose the demonstration. The galaxy has now seen what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable, very pragmatic object. We hope for wiser choices next time. Safe journey home, Admiral." As the 8 remaining Imperial battlecruisers, scarred and limping, turned away from the slaughter. Tool watched the defiance recede on the viewer. It was just one ship, but in its brutal, ugly, magnificent effectiveness, it had slain a god, the god of imperial infallibility. The journey back to Zarvi's Prime was a silent funeral procession. The reports he would file were not just tactical debriefs. They were obituaries for an age. The Empire could still win a war of attrition, perhaps, but it could never again claim unquestioned superiority. The galaxy now contained a viable alternative, and that, he realized with a soul-deep chill, was more dangerous than any fleet. The shockwave that rippled out from the Hezarian Gulf was not one of energy, but of idea. It spread at the speed of rumor, of subspace communiques, of whispered hope in 1,000 enslaved ports. On Zarvi's Prime, chaos was not a riot in the streets. It was a silent, seismic crack in the foundation of reality. In the reconvened Grand Council chamber, the air was frigid with despair and terror. Emperor Drax sat on his throne, his bioluminescence dim, his massive form seeming somehow shrunken. Before him, holograms displayed the cold, statistical horror of the battle. 12 Invincible-class vessels destroyed or crippled, 0 human casualties. A single ship, Counselor Vex whispered, his antennae limp. A single, brutish ship. It is not the ship, Captain Ven said, his voice the only steady sound in the room. He stood before them all, having returned ahead of the shattered armada. It is the proof of concept. Elegance can be fragile. Redundancy is resilient. Centralization is a vulnerability. They have not just built a better weapon. They have exposed a fundamental flaw in our paradigm. Before the Emperor could respond, the chamber doors opened once more. The same junior officer entered, his face etched with a new, deeper terror. Emperor. Sensor grids across the Empire. Sectors 3, 7, 12, 15, 18, 22, and the Coreward approach are reporting new contacts. 17 of them. Energy signatures are a 99.7% match to the Defiance. The silence this time was absolute, a vacuum that sucked the very breath from the room. 17. The word was a death knell. Ven's cybernetic eye projected the tactical map. 17 icons, each labeled with a human name. Unyielding, Bastion, Fortitude, glowed ominously, positioned not as an invasion force, but a net. They hovered near key hyperspace lanes, resource nodes, even one within sensor range of Zarvi's itself. A silent, inescapable demonstration. They are allowing civilian traffic to pass unimpeded, the officer added. They are transmitting standard navigational safety notices, but their weapons are active, and they are waiting. Emperor Drax looked from the map to Ven, the last vestiges of his imperial certainty crumbling in his luminous eyes. What do they want? As if in answer, the main comms panel chimed with a priority hail from an unrecognized code. Ven nodded to the officer. Put it through. Captain Jack Riker appeared, now against the backdrop of a different bridge. Simpler, starker. Emperor Drax. Counselors. The positions of our vessels are a defensive precaution, not a blockade. They are there to ensure our diplomatic envoys can negotiate without the threat of another demonstration, like the one Admiral Tool so tragically pursued. You surround us and speak of negotiation? Drax's voice was weary. We stand where we can be seen, Riker corrected. Our terms remain: sovereign recognition, non-aggression, fair trade, and one new condition: a formal imperial decree ending the policy of forced assimilation for all species under your dominion. The chamber erupted. They would dismantle the Empire itself. Riker waited for the outcry to subside. We propose not dismantlement, but evolution, a galactic concord, a coalition of sovereign species, sharing knowledge, technology, and security. Your empire brought stability, Emperor. But stability that rests on subjugation is stagnation. And stagnation. He glanced meaningfully at the tactical display with its 17 new lights, is vulnerable to those who have never stopped adapting. Dr. Lena Eris appeared beside him on the screen. We have studied your rise, Emperor Drax. After the Chaos Wars, you were the necessary cure, a strong centralizing force. But the cure, administered for 10,000 years, has become a toxin. Systems must grow or they die. We offer a path to growth, a partnership. Emperor Drax stared, not at the humans, but at the faces of his own council. He saw not just fear, but in some a flicker of possibility. The unthinkable was now the only thinkable path forward. To fight humanity meant a war against a resilient, dispersed, and infuriatingly pragmatic foe, with the rest of the galaxy watching, their own chains suddenly feeling lighter. He rose, his full height imposing, but the gesture now felt different. Not a threat, but an acceptance of a new scale. Your fleet will maintain its positions? As a guarantee of good faith. Yes, Riker said. And if we agree to negotiate this concord, then they become the first peacekeeping force of a new alliance. Their first mission, ensuring the safe return of sovereignty to those who wish it. The gamble was colossal, the humiliation profound. But as Emperor Drax looked at the 17 lights, he did not see an invasion force. He saw the future, arriving not with a plea, but with a quiet, unshakable statement of fact. The age of singular, elegant dominion was over. The age of messy, resilient, collaborative survival had begun. Prepare the diplomatic suites, he said, his voice echoing with the weight of epochs. We will negotiate. On the bridge of the Defiance, now joined by the Bastion and the Unyielding, Captain Jack Riker allowed himself a long, slow breath. The screens showed the Imperial diplomatic acceptance. Dr. Eris stood beside him. They believe the bluff, she murmured. Riker smiled. A true one this time, tired but triumphant. It wasn't a complete bluff, Lena. The engine cores are real. The signatures are real. The ships will be real. Soon enough. They just have to believe they are real now. He looked at the tactical feed from Earth. In the massive shipyards orbiting Luna and Mars, framed by the brilliant blue marble of their home, the skeletal ribs of dozens of new vessels were rising, incorporating the hard lessons of the Defiance. They were not copies. Each was an iteration, an adaptation, a new answer to the question of survival. Humanity had not won by becoming the new empire. They had won by offering an alternative to empire itself. They had taken the long, hard, redundant road, the road of resilience over grace, of distributed strength over centralized power, and had found that in the dark, cold calculus of the cosmos, sometimes the best way to win is not to be the sharpest blade, but to be the anvil that breaks every blade swung against it. The message was now etched across the stars for every species that had ever bent a knee to Zarvi's prime. There is another way, and it works.